Hi, everyone. This is Justin Atkinson with Paradigm Life, and of course, I'm one of the wealth strategists here at Paradigm Life, and really looking forward to sharing a few thoughts with all of you this evening. I know quite a few of us have put together various different things and thoughts that we wanted to share with all of our clients at this point in time, and there's just one thing that, quite honestly, I've heard from a lot of clients that I've met with. And I'm sure many of you, even as I've met with you, you've even said the same thing. And it's a statement that I wish I would have heard about this sooner. And I would have to say, out of all of the statements that I hear from my clients, that's probably the one that's the number one most common statement by everybody. And so, what I wanted to do tonight, and with all of you, is just to share some ideas or some thoughts around that. And I've got a presentation to share with you. It's called From the Cradle to the Grave. And of course, this is a statement that many of you have probably heard at various different times as well through different individuals. And I know one of the things, my wife is a huge U2 fan. And so I thought I'd have to start out tonight, and I just couldn't pass this up to be able to share, of course, the statement that U2 has in one of the songs that he sings, that the group sings. It's but all the promises we make from the cradle to the grave, when all I want is you. And of course, this is a love song that U2 has. Bono is singing this to his wife, and it's a very touching song. Quite honestly, I can see why my wife loves this so much. But with this one especially, it talks about relationships, the promises that we make to each other, the commitments that we make to each other, the things that we're going to do to be able to take care of each other and be there for each other. And of course, he says, when all I want is you. One of the struggles I know that a lot of individuals that I work with here at Paradigm Life go through is financial struggles. Not so much that maybe that they're not making enough money or things like that. And of course, that's definitely a struggle at times. But one of them is definitely, what financial vehicle do I use? What financial product am I to put my money into, my savings, things that I'm wanting to store away? The nuts that you save for the next winter time. And so there's a lot of struggles that people go through and wondering, what do I choose? What financial strategy do I use? And of course, all of you know here at Paradigm Life that we've got an incredible strategy that we teach yourself, that all of you have learned, and also new clients that will learn as well. And that's simply a dividend-paying whole life insurance policy, and utilizing that not only for accumulation, but also to utilize that for utilization as well, the loan provision, and to borrow against that and have that money available. And so I thought this statement here by U2 was very fitting to start out with. And when he says, when all I want is you, I'm definitely very biased, I know, and I've shared that with clients at times, but myself, all I want is just my dividend-paying whole life insurance policies. Currently, right now, I've got 5 policies, going to be starting up another one here very soon as well. And so that's personally where I put all of my savings, and then I leverage that and utilize that whenever I have investment opportunities that come up. So what I wanted to do with all of you is actually just go through an example of an individual's life from the cradle to the grave, and say, if all that they did was use a dividend-paying whole life insurance policy as their only financial vehicle to save money into, what would it look like? And so what I've got prepared for you then is, first off, I came up with a couple of different milestones in life. The first one is, I've got one policy starting at a point in time, of course, when this child is born. So at age 0. So just freshly born there, ready to start life. And what I've done is I've designed a policy here that goes for funded with $200 per month. And I only have that funding going up to age 20. So that means at age 21, there's no more premiums that are being paid into this policy. Now, of course, I'm not going to go into all the details with you in this presentation about how the policy is structured, how much is base, how much is paid up additions. I know that the policies that you have, we structure them that way, and I did that with you. But this is structured the way we do it at Paradigm Life: maximum cash value accumulation, minimum death benefit. And so that first policy is just for when that child is going through that first phase of life up to age 20. Saving money, parents are funding the policy. More than likely the parents own the policy, so they're the ones that are funding it, have control over all the money, and the child would be the insured on it. And so that's the first policy. And then policy number 2 is one here where possibly, depending on where the child is at age 20, they may be in a position where they can go out and start a policy on their own, or maybe contribute part to that policy. And so maybe at age 20, the parents still continue to put in $200 a month, and possibly the child at age 20 is in a position to start funding, and they start putting in $300 a month. Or maybe it's a split between the mom or the parents and the child. Again, just an idea here, not to get hung up on certain numbers at certain ages, but just to give you an idea, starting another policy at that point. Now this one here, I've got it funding all the way to age 65. So that $500 a month would be paid every single month all the way up to age 65. And that premium, again, could start out to be a combination of the parents and the child, or the parents only, and then the child kicks in later. But the ownership of the policy would be transferred over to the child as that child gets older, and especially once they start taking over the premiums. So that's a great time to let that child take it over. And there's ways to be able to transfer ownership of policies in a very, very efficient way without any tax consequences. Of course, there's the gift tax exemption that you have, where you can literally gift money to your children every single year and do that outside of any tax implications. Or you can even take your estate tax exemption that you have as parents, and you can use, say like in 1 year, you could transfer an entire cash value amount on the life insurance policy over to your child, and then that's just deducted from your estate tax exemption when you pass away. So there's a lot of different ways to be able to transfer the value of the policy. So we've got policy number 2 there that starts up at age 20. And then at policy number 3, at age 30, this is when the child's actually out there and starting to work and maybe start to generate some additional income, additional money's coming in. And so this is where that third policy starts up. And you can see at that point in time, that's $1,000 a month going into that one. And that is also to age 65. Again, I just chose age 65 because that's kind of that magical age that people talk about as retirement. Again, not that you're locked in at that point, but just an idea. And then policy number 4 is one that I started up a little bit later. This one's at age 50. And I started it later because, traditionally, when families are raising children, children can be very expensive. I've got 3 children myself. Youngest is 18, the oldest is 24. So I've already got one through college, and she's already off working and starting her career, and the other 2 are in college right now. So it can be very expensive. And so therefore what I've done is I've said, okay, let's keep that, say, $1,000, $1,500 a month going into the policy from age 20 all the way up to age 50. But then at age 50, they're going to be in a position where more than likely that child is now, an adult, of course, and they're making a lot more money as well. And so at that point in time, at age 50, you can really start ramping up and start putting a lot more into another policy. And this one's showing $25,000 a year going into that one. And that goes all the way up to age 65. So again, you've got these 3 different policies. The first one is only funded up to 20 years old, and then no more premiums are paid into it. But the other 3, there's still premiums being paid into those 3 up to age 65. So that's the idea. And you may have even seen this diagram or this picture that I just brought up on the screen. This is something that we use a lot here at Paradigm Life when we talk about the different stages of life. Maybe I even shared this with you, or maybe I did my little drawing of it myself. But again, at policy number 1 here, we start out here at the very base of the mountain, right when that child is born. And then policy number 2 at age 20, that may be somewhere right around this point of the mountain here, where they're, again, just kind of starting to build and go up there. And policy number 3, when they're 30, possibly could be somewhere right around this part of the mountain. And then another one here, policy number 4, at age 50. And of course, that top of the mountain point there, that's that magical age 65, and the point in time where you say, okay, I'm going to retire and be done. And then, of course, at that point, as you start coming down the mountain and start to go through the distribution phase of life, where you're starting to pull money out of your assets. We're going to talk about that tonight too, because again, the whole presentation tonight is about from the cradle to the grave. And so we're going to go through the accumulation phase, fund policies, show what you're going to be able to use that money for as that child is going through that accumulation phase, and then at age 65, take that money out. And the last thing I'll do is to actually give you a comparison between if you were to do this similar type of funding and do it into the stock market compared to putting it into a policy. Where would you be at age 65? That magical time when you say, okay, do I have enough money? Have I accumulated enough to get me down the mountain? So we'll do a little comparison like that, and then some distribution numbers in retirement as well. Now, just to remind you here before we go any further here, in a moment I'm going to start to bring up a lot of numbers and a lot of calculators, and these are numbers and calculators that we've used here at Paradigm Life to demonstrate how you can use a policy, how you can borrow against it, how the money still continues to accumulate. And so I just wanted to make sure that before I got into that, and I go to a clean sheet here, I want to just emphasize again, or maybe review with you very, very briefly, the idea about the accumulation and utilization aspect of the policy. Because remember, you've got policies, and these policies are designed primarily to build tremendous cash value. And I'm sure that's one of the main reasons why a lot of you started a policy in the first place. So we've got tremendous cash value that's accumulating inside of it. And then when you get to a point where you're ready to take or to utilize that money or to borrow against it, you've contacted us here at Paradigm Life. We've assisted you with policy loans. But very simply, you just go to the insurance company. And let's say this is the life insurance company over here. And you request a policy loan. And if you remember, when you take a policy loan, the money that you receive in that policy loan does not come from the cash value of your policy. That money that you receive actually comes directly from, and this is the policy loan money, I'm going to write that on here, that comes from the general fund of the insurance company. And so literally there's two things that are going on simultaneously here. And maybe you remember me going over this with you. I'm going to draw a line in between here. You've got your money that's sitting right inside of the cash value of your policy, and that money is accumulating. So there's the accumulation of that money. And of course, when you take a policy loan, that allows you to have the utilization of that money. And these two things are going on simultaneously. So I put an and here in the middle because those two things are happening side by side. Because remember, when you take a policy loan, the money that you receive isn't pulled from your cash value, because what you're doing is you are borrowing against the cash value of your policy. You're not pulling money out of the cash value. So that means your cash value is still sitting inside of your policy, and it's doing something like this over time. It's got this compounding growth curve where every single year, one year to the next, the cash value gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's compounding. And then, of course, you have your policy loan, and then there's interest that's charged on that policy loan. You probably remember me talking to you about that. And, of course, when you pay that interest, that goes back into the general fund of the insurance company. So the bottom line with policy loans, and many of you have probably already experienced this because you've taken a policy loan, but when you do one, your policy continues to grow and compound even while you're doing that. So I just wanted to go through a little refresher on that just to make sure that we're on the same page, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to I'm going to go to a clean sheet here, and I'm going to bring in one of our calculators here. Now, this calculator is already preloaded with all of the values from the policies. Remember those 4 policies that we talked about just a moment ago. And there's that first policy. Let me go back up here to year number 1. But that first policy that's having $250 going into it every month, you can see that that's shown and represented right here all the way up through age 20 at $250 a month, which is the $3,000 a year. And then also after that, at age 20, starting in age 21, for the next 10 years, we had a policy that was funded with $500 a month. And that's represented by the $6,000 right here that I just highlighted. And then starting now at age 31, for the next 20 years, you see there's $18,000 going in per year. Now that $18,000 is the $1,000 going in per year of the new policy, plus the $500 a month that was going in from the previous policy, because you still keep funding that one up to age 65. So that puts in $18,000 a year. Again, I'm doing that because you're at a point where you're making more money, generating more funds, and able to put more into it. And then for the last few years there, from age 51 to age 65, there's a total of $43,000 going into the all of the policies combined together. Now, this is the amazing thing about this particular strategy. And again, we talk about how your policy accumulates and grows, regardless if you borrow against it or not. Well, look at this value here. At age 65, from the cradle up until retirement, look at the cash value that's projected to be inside all of these 4 policies. It's about $3.2 million. Now, that's not even the death benefit. That's just the cash value at that point in time. So these policies do an extremely good job of building value over time as you continue to fund them. Now, this is the part where it gets really exciting. We talk about from the cradle to the grave, and there's things or moments in life where you just need some money. You got to have it. And let's talk about this for a moment, because up here you may see that I've got a few different columns that I'm pointing to right now. One mentioned car. There's a couple of them here for college, another one for car, and then one, a home DP. That stands for a home down payment. And so what I'm going to illustrate to you here is literally going into these policies that are set up for this individual from their birth all the way up to age 65. And I'm going to show taking some policy loans for various different things that may be needed or even wanted. And we're going to do it at different stages of life here. Now, over here on the far right-hand column, there's a column here that says net EOY. EOY stands for end of year. Net end of year loan balance plus account balance. So this is going to tell us how much cash value there is available that we could borrow against. So let's start out here with the first one, with the car. Now, what I did, and this, again, just an idea, because when kids turn 16 years old, they think they're indestructible and want to go out there and conquer the world. So they want to get their own car. Now, again, you may pay $30,000 for a car when a child turns 16. You may not. But this is just an example. So what I show here is at age 16, there's a policy loan that's taken out against the cash value of these of the policies Actually, this is only one policy at that point. And because there's over about $60,000 of cash value available. So you take out a policy loan for $30,000. So that's in year 16. Now I show there's just one loan like this, and I show 5 years to pay back this loan. This is one of the beautiful things about the system that we have, is that this provides a means for you and for anyone to literally go out and begin to teach their children the value of money. Meaning that if they get a car at age 16, you as a parent aren't just going to give it to them, because if you just give it to them, you know what's going to happen to that car. It's going to be dirty. They're probably going to run it into a couple of other cars. They're just not going to take care of that car. But if you set up an agreement with them and say, okay, we're going to purchase this car because we've got this policy that we've been funding here, and there's money in here that can be utilized for this. However, we're going to set it up on a schedule to pay it back over the next 5 years. And then you can begin to speak with your children about how it is or what ideas they have to pay it back. What can they do? Maybe they do chores around the home. And for those chores, you give them a certain amount of money to compensate for that work. Maybe they mow the yard. So instead of you hiring somebody to do it, you pay your children to do it. And let them generate income or create or come up with some of their own ideas of ways to have income as well. And so therefore, you can see here that I've got this set up where that car loan is paid back over a 5-year period of time. And we're just paying it back at 5% interest. That's what generally the policy loans are at, so I just kept it at that. And as you can see then, as that policy loan is paid back, the amount of money that's available over here on the far right-hand side shows us that there's more and more cash value that can be borrowed against. So it's a great way to be able to, again, teach children the value of money. So that happens at age 16. So they've got a car, pretty decent car there that they can probably even take into college and begin that stage of their life. And then, of course, you get down here a little bit further, and at age 18, more than likely, they're going to start college. Now, at age 18, as we can see here with the value of this first policy, and still even from taking that policy loan for the car, in that year, there's still about $58,000, almost $59,000 that's available to borrow against for college. So I'm going to click this one on, and in that year, I'm going to show taking out $40,000 to pay for college. Now, I'm doing this because I've only got the 5 different columns up there of things to show. So that $40,000 may be actually 2 years of college. So I'm showing it coming out at age 18. This one here, I'm actually showing years to repay the loan at 10 years. So I'm stretching this one out a bit. You may have your child that's in college, and they may have a part-time job. And that part-time job, they could assist in paying back the policy loan for college. Maybe it's just you as the parents that are doing that. So whatever the case may be, you've got that being paid back there over 10 years. And then I went ahead and showed the next $40,000, this time coming out at age 20. So you see right here at age 18, there's $40,000 for college. And then at age 20, there's another $40,000. And you can see over here in cash value, there's still some more cash value that's available. But again, you've utilized it for college. And so you're funding college here. And of course, that's at age 20, that's when your child has reached that point where the first policy now has been fully funded at $250 a month. And then at age 21, see, we're kicking up the premiums now to $500 a month. And this may be where you as the parents add a little extra out of cash flow that you have, or maybe your child goes out and, again, gets some kind of employment, even while they're in college, part-time job. So there's the college. And then I've got another one here, another car. Now, what I'm showing here is that this car kicks in at age 25. Now, at age 25, it's very likely that at that point in time, that child's going to be complete with college, maybe going into graduate school, but maybe not, but they may be complete with college and starting to do their own work. And so this is a time where they may even start and take over the policy themselves and start funding it to $500 a month. And now you as a parent, you're off the hook, said, you know what, I got you off to a great start, and now this is yours. You take it over. And so here it shows at age 25 going out and purchasing that first car. Now, you can see here with this car column up here, in year 25, we're starting the first one, but I've got 6, the number of loans, I have 6 on this one. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually showing going out for 6 years. Every 5 years, you're taking 5 years to pay it back, but going out and purchasing 6 different vehicles over the next 30 years. So you see I've got it all the way down there. At age 50 is the last time I'm showing here a car being purchased. Now I could even go further with this if I wanted to. Let's go ahead and go, let's say we're going to do this 7 times instead. May even be able to go a little bit further than that. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like I can fit one more in there. So let's go ahead and do 8 here. So over that period of time up to the age of 65, there's 8 different cars that are purchased here through the means of policy loans. And of course, there's inflation that's going to be kicked in and everything. But, if you purchase a car and trade it in, there's going to be a trade-in value. You may be able to have some additional money to roll over, and you can use that towards the inflation portion of the next purchase. But you can see here by doing all of those loans, there's still cash value that's available here that can be borrowed against. So here we are, gone through, done all these car purchases, but now at age 25, your child is probably living in an apartment, hasn't gotten their own home yet, but they may be searching, maybe looking around, thinking about, hey, it might be time for us to go ahead and purchase our first home. So beautiful enough, over here at cash value inside the policy, there's money here now to be able to leverage to go out and make that first home purchase. And here, I'm showing here at age 30, and I'll just highlight that line there. Here we took out again another $45,000 for another car, but here you also took out $100,000, did a policy loan for $100,000 as a down payment on a home. So, and maybe you're getting this by now, that this whole policy, this one financial strategy, remember, all I want is you. This one financial strategy or financial product is able to not only provide money to be able to finance cars, college, down payment on a home, and who knows what else. It's doing all of this, and you can see there at age 30, take out $100,000 as a policy loan. This one I'm showing taking 15 years to pay it back. That's the beautiful thing, if you remember, about a policy loan. If you don't want to take 15 years, maybe you want to take 20 years. So we can just put 20 years on here. That's fine. If you want to take 20, even if you want to take 25 years to pay back that one, or even, I guess at this point, you could do it as a regular 30-year mortgage and just charge yourself the interest to pay it back over a period of 30 years. And so by the time that child then has gone through, borrowed for a home, down payment on a home, a bunch of cars, college, their first car, you can see now that they've gone all the way down here, and by the time they get to age 65, something that really fascinating has happened here. We've borrowed against the cash value and done all of these things throughout that child's life from age when they were first born up to age 65. But look at the cash value down here at age 65. It's still the exact same number that it was before we even did any of this borrowing. See, if I turn off all of these loans again, I'm going to just click all of them off for a moment. You see, at age 65, we're projecting growth of $3,257,000. Even if you go in and borrow against that cash value and do all of this loan activity in your own system, your cash value still at age 65 is $3,257,000. So remember, just because your policy is set, or your policies are set up and accumulating, doesn't mean you can't borrow against it. because you're going to get the accumulation on that money regardless if you borrow against it or not. So why not utilize that money and do it and use it for your own advantage? So this right here shows up to age 65 what can be done in order to be able to borrow against and utilize that cash value. Now, the one thing about this, though, of course, is that's showing everything up to age 65. Once you get to age 65, of course, that's the point in time where now you're starting to come down the mountain. It's time for the distribution. And when we're looking at distribution, we're saying, okay, you've saved up all this money. Am I going to have enough to get myself all the way down the mountain? And that's a lot of different strategies that we get into here at Paradigm Life. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with that this evening. But one thing I am going to show you, though, is just to bring in, again, another one of our calculators. And I apologize if this is a lot of calculators for you tonight, but it's just kind of an easy way for me to be able to demonstrate this to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put in here the actual amount of cash value that you have in the policy at age 65. And this is the distribution calculator for that. Now, what I'm also showing here too, and I'll bring this over and make it a little bit bigger so it's a little easier to see, but you see up here the principal value of assets, $3,257,164. So that's the cash value projected there at age 65. And what I've done is I put in an earnings rate of 4%. The policies are generating more than that, even at today's very, very low dividend rates. But I'm going to be very conservative here and say that it's 4. And what I'm showing here is I'm showing an illustration period of 20 years. Now, I'm doing 20 years because at age 65, if I were to pull up just for a moment here, let me get this one in front of us here. I'm going to pull up a life expectancy chart. And life expectancy at age 65 for just a male, standard rating, non-smoker, you see right here it's 19.17 years, so right at 20 years. So I'm using a 20-year time frame on this distribution chart to say, well, if you started to pull out money and did that, and remember you're pulling out money here from the policy and the cash value that you're going to be able to access, including growth for the rest of your life, you're going to be able to do that income tax free. So I've got the free button checked here. So that means if the gross withdrawal is $205,000 a year, the amount that you're going to have after tax is still $205,000 a year, because this is an income tax-free distribution. Now, if we were to do just a real basic calculator here again, another one, and if you were to take that $205,000, 731, and if you were to equate that to say if you would have had to pay 25% of that in tax, let's see if I can do this correct here. 205, 731, and we're going to divide that by 0.75 so we can find out what the equivalent payment is before tax. So you can see that's actually an equivalent annual income of $274,000. So that's the distribution. That's an idea of what that would look like in retirement as you're coming down the mountain. 20 years of income, just from the funding of these policies, the 4 policies up to age 65. Now, I think that's pretty impressive. We're talking about a dollar amount that's going into policies that's not an elaborate, a high dollar amount to be funding policies. $250 a month, $500 a month, $1,000 a month. I know when you hit age 50, I'm talking $25,000 a year, plus the other funding from the other ones too. But But again, you're going to be able to step up and stagger up your income level as well the older that you get. So that gives you an idea then of the distribution in that phase of life coming down the mountain. So that takes you all the way to the grave. Now, again, covered a lot of things. Maybe we can take a breath here just for a moment and just talk about and recap again from what we began with. From age 0 all the way up to age 65, 4 different policies. Funding those policies, putting money into those policies, having the money available to be able to borrow against, leverage, utilize for various different purposes, various different expenses, various different life events. Even a marriage in the family, whatever you need it for, it's there to borrow against. And so last of all, what I'd like to do is just wrap up here with a question I know a lot of people get, and they say, well, that sounds great, Justin. I mean, it's, I like the idea, but you know what? It's life insurance. It's whole life insurance. I mean, it's costly. There's high fees to it. I'd probably be better off putting my money into the market. So let's wrap up with that just for a moment to go through that comparison. And since we're talking about a 65-year period of funding, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a chart here that gives us the market history for the last 65 years of the market. Now, this is the one thing that's always tough with doing anything like this, is that, what's the market going to do? Who knows? It's a difficult one. And there's volatility. So I don't know. I think taking a 65-year period in the market is probably a pretty fair thing to look at here. So if I go back that period of time, you can see here we've got returns from the market here, and I'm just going to use the one here in the middle, the S&P 500 without dividends. And you can see here, if you go back quite a long ways, it's got a lot of returns here, up and down. It's all over the place. And so I'm just utilizing those values, those numbers, and I'm going to be plugging that directly into the calculator so we know what it looks like going forward. So I've got the one already created for you here. And this right here shows 65 years of market history. So all of these numbers right here are just taken directly from a chart. This is, I think, all the way from 1951, I believe, to 2015. So the last 50 years. And what I've done as well is that, and you can see this in the red, this shows the funding that would be going into the market. And these are the exact same values that I have for the money that's going into the life insurance policies. So exactly the same. Now, the one thing that I've done as well over here is that, of course, whenever you put money into the market, there's going to be a management fee. And management fees are one of those things it's hard to say, okay, this is exactly what it is. I know that for many of you, I've mentioned that there's some independent research that was done by Bloomberg. And Bloomberg found that with traditional 401k accounts, that the total management fees that they found, including disclosed and undisclosed fees, it ended up being about 3.5%. Now, the one thing that I've done here, and you can see up here in the top right-hand corner, I've got miscellaneous fees. And I only have 2% here. Sometimes 2% is even the total amount that one would have on just the disclosed fees, not even to mention any undisclosed fees. And so for me to list 2% here for miscellaneous fees, I think that's pretty conservative there. If I go higher, it has a drastic effect. So we're gonna give them a little more of the benefit of the doubt and do it 2%. And then for the tax bracket, I'm showing taxes being accounted for here. And you can see here I also have one thing said here, tax credit for losses. So in any given year when the market went negative, you see right here in the third year, the market went negative. And so at that point in time, there was negative interest. I'm actually showing a tax credit of $207 that year. Now, do people always take those credits? Most generally, they don't. But I'm going to go ahead and show it in here just as, again, give them the benefit of the doubt. And show taxes being paid. So therefore, by the time we get down to age 65, in this particular scenario, if you were to invest into the market entirely, we'll know what number is left over after management fees and after taxes. Because remember, the amount that's left over in the life insurance policy is also after fees, after commissions, after funding the death benefit, and after taxes. So with this chart right here, going 65 years down the road from now, you can see that the total amount of that account, hypothetically, over the 65 years of market history, you've got $2,783,000. Now, do you remember what the value was for the life insurance policy? That value was, and I'll bring this up here in just a moment. I'm going to use a little different calculator here to illustrate this. But there's the value of the life insurance policy at age 65. Now, again, this might be a new calculator for you, a new chart. But if I scroll back up here again, you'll see this one showing the $3,000 going in for the first 20 years. After that, it jumps up to $6,000, and then it goes up to $18,000, and then it jumps up to the $43,000 in years for the remaining years at age 65. And you see there, at age 65, the life insurance policy, good old stodgy whole life insurance, has a cash value of $3,257,164, and the money sitting inside the market equals $2,783,148. So in just cash on cash between these two different scenarios, the life insurance policy actually generates a higher value. And if you want to know the percentage of how much higher, there's the stock market, $2,783,148. Life insurance, $3,257,164. The life insurance policy actually has approximately 17% more in cash value. And along that entire period of time, for the entire 65 years, you had the ability to be able to borrow against all of that money and do all of the things that I demonstrated earlier. Purchasing cars, paying for college, putting a down payment on a home. And again, whatever else you may even think of. And on top of that, I know there's a lot of ands that we do here, but and on top of that, look at what happens with the life insurance policy. At age 65, you also have a death benefit of $6,189,370. And so the beautiful thing about this is that I'm showing these numbers on the life insurance policy going out to age 65. But let me do this for you. Let me show them out to age 100. Because remember, we talked about at age 65 not putting any more money into the policies. Well, look what happens. Even after age 65, you're not putting any more premium into the policies because you're retired. This is the time when you start to take out money. You start to distribute it. You start to spend it. Well, look at what happens in the cash value. Every single year, even though you're not paying any premiums, your cash value still continues to increase and grow. And the death benefit does the same thing. So therefore, these policies aren't meant to expire at age 65. They're meant to be there for your entire life, your whole life. Again, from the cradle to the grave. And I take these all the way out to age 100. Look at age 100. You've got death benefit, cash value and death benefit, over $12 million. So the beautiful thing about this is that let's say that by the time you get to age 65, and again, this I haven't talked about this evening. I know we've got other presentations on this, but if you were to have borrowed against the cash value up to age 65 and utilize that to go out and maybe invest in real estate, generate some other assets that are generating income, so that by the time you hit age 65, you don't even need to start taking money out of this for retirement income. Maybe you've got it through other sources. Well, if that's the case, now you've got a life insurance policy that's going to grow and accumulate. And when you pass away, that death benefit pays out to the next generation. And guess what the next generation does with that money? I think you may have thought about it. They go out and they buy life insurance policies on the next generation. And it just keeps being a perpetual machine here from generation to generation. So those are my thoughts this evening that I wanted to, or today. You may be listening to this in the evening or maybe the afternoon, but these are the thoughts that I wanted to share with you and just give you a good comparison of what it looks like literally to go from the cradle to the grave with just one financial vehicle. And I'll just end with these final thoughts again about you too. But all the promises we make from the cradle to the grave when all I want is you. And what a beautiful financial strategy and financial product we have here at Paradigm Life to enable you to be able to keep those promises and keep those commitments to the loved ones and the ones that you have very close relationships with in your life. And you do it through just one financial vehicle called the dividend-paying whole life insurance policy. So again, grateful to spend this time with you and to go through all of this with you. And if you've got any questions, any comments, definitely feel free to reach out to me. My email address is the letter J and then my last name Atkinson, J Atkinson at paradigmlife.net. Or you can just reach us here directly at Paradigm Life. Go on our website, give us a phone call, and definitely be happy to assist you. And maybe this will unlock some other ideas or some thoughts that even if you have policies yourself, maybe it's time for you to start thinking of your children or your grandchildren and getting policies started from them so they have something that goes from the cradle to the grave for them. And so again, thank you very much, and absolutely appreciate your business and look forward to working with you more. Thank you.